Start on page Kuf Nun Aleph. This is like 7 lines from the top. I didn't count it exactly, but approximately. And the line begins with the word hasagasato.
Right. Eight times.
It's exactly 8 lines, verified by the Frenchman. We are now into the next phase of Avodah. It starts off with Makif. But in Makifim, there is no milchama with the Yetzer Hara. Because they're completely misbattled, they completely lose their stance. There's no way for them to access that. To add a little notch into this principle, Makif can only be realized, can only be related to by absolute bittul, by absolute union. You have to become part of it. There is no way that you can know it as a standalone entity. And therefore the chitzonim, where this is their prime principal identity, no matter how great and good they are, but their principal identity is that they are standalone entities. Therefore there is absolutely no way for them to access the makif. When they get to the makif, they completely they're completely embraced by it, and they become bottled completely. In the Kirches Agluim, in the functioning Kirches, we already discussed Kirches Agluim, where each action is identifiable in itself. There, the Yetzer Hara and the Chitzonim are able to participate and to relate to it. So you are able to do it, and I'm able to do it. And this is where the Aveda is to effect a birur in Nefesh HaBamis. And what does this birur mean? That the Nefesh HaBamis, that the interest and the activity of the Nefesh HaBamis should be focused in the right direction. Not for self-satisfaction, not for self-aggrandizement, but for the real reason for why this is there. And the Aveda of Nefesh HaBamis says this is effectively Aveda Pitam B'das, Aveda Tefilin B'Avin Tefilin B'Zbenis B'Lakus, and so forth. Now we are on the line that begins with what hasagasato. V'tachlis hakavona. The ultimate goal, tachlis means the goal in this intent. Why do we have this aspect? Why is it not enough that you have the makif should embrace all, and the Chitzonim are automatically bottled within it, and there is no opposition? Why do we have this phase of it, of the p151, Apitam das does not only mean the Nefesh Abamis, Nefesh Elokis also. Kirchas Haglui. Nefesh Elokis also is required to apply Kirchas Haglui. So why we have that for? Why not leave it at the Makif? So the ultimate tachlis, the ultimate goal in the kavanah, in the intent in this phenomenon is shegam haseichel hativi, that the natural seichel. Natural seichel means a seichel that follows the presentation of a natural presentation of things. Natural representation begins with one's own observation. It doesn't begin with beetle. It begins with what I see. There is ultimately a purpose in this. The purpose is to bring about that this natural seichel should also understand the divine principle in you. In other words, this whole phenomenon, this negative aspect, as we identified, negative. It's opposite to the positive. There is a divine intent and purpose in it. So that the divine will embrace, will get into internally into the chitzonim and bring them, and elevate them, being them to recognize the from the Elokus. Let us point out the phenomenal breakthrough that this requires. As we said before, the whole stance of the Chitzonim is self-identity. And in order to recognize the Elokus per se, one has to give up his personal stance. No, I am not standing independently. I am a recipient. And I'm really part of a greater reality, of a greater truth. I'm not a standalone entity. There's a
To remain on this call, press 1.
There's a divine intent. Okay, I'll give it another chance, let's see. How come I'm not getting this? Okay. There is something to be gained as a result of this challenge from the Nefesh Abamis. Where the inner Elokus becomes recognized and appreciated, even in the Koiches HaGluyim, which is in fact, by definition, quite contrary to its own interest. And this is the Tachlis HaKavon, the ultimate intent, purpose of this whole inyan, that there is the inyan, the Faraber HaPitam Adas. Okay, let's continue. Tachlis HaKavon, Shagam HaSeichel HaTivi, that it should be that even or also the seichel tibi, the natural seichel, yobin v'yasik as inyan haliki, should understand and comprehend the inyan haliki. Over here, it would behoove us to understand the different expressions, so we understand the impact of this. Yobin v'yasik are basically the similar principle, but they speak about two different levels of understanding. Yobin means to understand. Yasik means to relate to it, to acquire it. Yasik means to grasp it. You grasp something if you can relate to it. Just to illustrate, this is a cup of water, and that I can see even as it stands separately. But to grab it, I have to identify it fully. How do you get hold of it, and what do you do with it? That's a completely different level of recognition than by observation or even knowing exactly what you can do with it. Mm-hmm. This is Yomim B'Yasik. It is, but what intended to be here is that the Nefesh Habam is that Seichel HaTibi, the natural Seichel, should not only understand what is being explained, but Yasik, he should grasp it. He should be able to internalize it within his natural stance. Elikus should become naturally relatable. Clearly, this is a very challenging union. And this is why there's a whole preparation for this, and it is through a process of beetle, beetle, and so forth. And the principle of beetle, as we already discussed, is that you understand not on the basis of your own experience. And you accept that understanding, not on the basis of your own experience. It is not via your testing, your experimentation that convinces you of this union. You understand it fully, Yom V'Yasik, because you see the Nefesh Elokis is understanding it. You cannot understand it on the basis of your own experience. Because your own experience is all worldly. Let's understand, I want to, clearly there's something missing here. If you see a world, and you ask, where is this world coming from? I said, something created it. Something that is not worldly has created it. And as much as you recognize this, and you prove this truth, it does not change the world from being a world to godly. You merely justify the existence of world. Where does it come from? God created it. It remains worldly as it was before.
That's by design. That's because world is so self-contained. Or that's a failing in our own perception.
it is all of the above, but the main thing is how does it change? It changes when you accept and you join and you let yourself understand the union not as you understand it, but as it is being explained to you by the Nefesh Elokis.
And then the worldliness of the world is
Then the worldliness of the world is
refined.
elevated completely to a different perspective.
Uh-huh. And that's also to say the Nefesh Elokis has what to say about worldly context.
Well, this is what it is. It goes down into Talmudas. Nefesh Elokis in Aveda comes down into Talmudas, and Nefesh Elokis can see Talmudas in Elokus, but Nefesh Elokis sees it from an Elokus perspective. And it goes, and the intent of it is to go to the Nefesh Abamis and to show it the Elokus in its environment. And in order for the Nefesh Abamis to recognize it, it has to approach it with subjugation and beating, because it's a different. You have to understand it from a different perspective completely. It's not on the basis of your experience and the basis of the truth of the Lakus. Aha! What is this cup I'm doing on the table? The truth of the cup is that somebody put it there. It does not have its own means of being there. And the only way for you to identify with its reality is to identify with the means by which it came there. This is where Elokus permeates Talmudas. Talmudas means logical reasoning. But then you come back and say the logical reasoning is not based on physical observation, but is based on the fact that, yes, God created the world, and He created such a world that you can reason rationally in it. But it all remains a divine creation. No matter how justified, how well you can understand the world, it remains a divine miracle. To the extent, as I said many times, this will be a little bit of this is always a difficult thing, that 2 times 2 equals to 4 is a divine principle. It's not a worldly principle. It's not made by world. We already discussed that in the past and so forth. And this is what the Rebbe says. This is the Tachlis HaKavonah, the ultimate intent. The purpose is that the Seichel Tibi, the natural Seichel. Natural Seichel means a Seichel that follows a natural process. Should understand and yasig and comprehend and accept the reality of the Inyan Eliki. He should fully comprehend and understand, like we said just now, that 2 times 2 equals to 4 is not a natural creation. It's really a divine principle, a divine miracle. And then, when he begins to recognize the elokus within the natural environment, then he comes to recognize and yasig and comprehend. Comprehend means acclimate the inner, the eliki element. And he begins to recognize the tape and the ilu of elokus, the goodness and the supremacy of elokus. The eliki element in the world changes the entire perspective of what world is. Think about this. This cup of water is a cup of water. But if you relate to the meaning of this, that somebody served this cup of water to you, if you relate to that aspect, it's a completely different cup of water. It's a different water that you're living in. This is, so to speak, on the human level. To extend from that and recognize that the entire world that you're observing is a world that's being presented to you from a godly perspective. From inception, who conceptualized the whole Mitzvah world is a godly conception. It gives you a different perspective, and it elevates, and it gives you the sense of the greatness and the wonders of the Elokus. That is an effect upon the Nefesh Habahamis through the process of Tam Das, through Seichel process. And again, as we said before, Yovin B'Yasig, there are two distinct stages. You can understand it. You can even prove it. It still remains an external knowledge. Yasig means that you absorb it. Yasig means that you acclimate to it. Like I said many times, sometimes you discuss a seichel with somebody, and you go back and forth, and you ask another question, and you point until you go through many cycles, and finally you say something and says, "Oh, that, of course, I always knew it." It's a very common thing. What do you mean you always knew it? How come you were constantly questioning it? You always knew it at a higher level, at a godly level. You knew it from its inception, from its source, rather than from its experience. For the Nefesh Habahamis to know, to Yovin, V'Yasik, and ultimately grab onto it and acclimate it in its own reasoning process, is a whole transformation which brings about for him to the point where he recognizes how wondrous and great this inner Elokus is. And by the now the next line, as a result, he is awakened, aroused, gam be'ahavol Elokus, even with a sense of ahavot Elokus. Completely different realm. It's not a part of his world. He loves Elokus, although it's completely outside of his world. This is the ultimate kavana, purpose of this whole challenge and process. This is not the first time we're learning this, but now we went into some degree of clarity. Let's continue in the same line. The line begins with the word Belokus. But at first, to begin with this whole process, it is b'derech hachno. It is a process and an approach of hachno, of subjugation, or beetle, and coming along. Beetle means giving up its own sense of judgment. I understand it because you understand it. I understand what you understand. And although I don't really understand it myself, I understand because you understand it. I submit to that. I accept that real understanding is the way you understand it, not the way I understand it. And that's the understanding that I accept for my own purposes. Thus, the understanding of the Nefesh Elokis becomes my accepted understanding, although it is not my own discovery. But I know that that is the truth, even though it is Nefesh Elokis that's telling me about it. But I know that's the truth. And that's the truth to which I adhere. And this is where beetle comes in. Beetle means I go along exactly fully with what you're leading me, because I leave it up to you to lead me correctly. I don't mind repeating what you tell me. This ultimately, when he gets to understand and comprehend the Toiv and Il of Lakus, this different supremacy, the phenomenal meaning of Lakus, it brings him to the point where he's have Avol Lakus. And as the Rebbe said, to begin with, it has to be with Achno, or beetle. What is the beetle? The line begins with what Shemaskim al ha-beetle nefesh Elokis. He acquiesces to the beetle of the nefesh Elokis. What can a beetle of nefesh Elokis have? Nefesh Elokis is beetle through and through. Nefesh Elokis is by definition saying, I am not my own being. I am that which God makes. Totally. That is the beetle of Nefesh Elokis. And he, the Nefesh Abamis, is masking to the beetle of Nefesh Elokis. So that this Yeshus, his personal self-identity, should not stand in his way, preventing him to go and to relate to Din Molokus. Because if there is a world level of identification, that is an obstacle to recognizing the Din Molokus, whose world level recognition is coming from Yeshus, from experience. This is he because I can feel it, I can touch it. He doesn't at all subscribe to to the inyan, what is the meaning of its being here? What is the kavanah in it? Like we see the example in unit chasana. The food completely conceals the significance of this whole event. And that becomes an obstacle in relating to its significance, to the truth. Let's continue. The line begins Shemaskim. The end of the line add to the point Shegam hu misera biyava, so that he too, the nefesh habahamis, also is aroused, awakened with an ahav. Sheyitzu be'elokus, that he should want elokus, and here is an important word, dafka. Dafka means exclusively. He's no longer acquiescing. Elokus is also a good thing. It's also true. That is still based knowing elokus from a yesh, from a worldly perspective. He comes to the point where he wants elokus dafka exclusively. Not knowing elokus as an outsider, but knowing elokus as an insider. Exclusively. This comes as a result of him acquiescing to the beetle of the nefesh holokis. And he says, this beetle, this is what I want. This is the real thing. So he wants a lakus, bi'avo, and he wants a lakus dafko. Dafko means exclusively. He doesn't want anything representing anything that is emulating the lakus, but he wants a lakus itself. And then the Rebbe says, "B'chol zeh," this entire process is b'derech milchomo. This is in a milchoma, in a war process. There's a war element over here. Why is it a war? If you recognize the truth, there's a war element. The Rebbe explains. He wouldn't explain, the Rebbe would explain in such detail, but this is the key to the whole thing. Because since that the Aveda is b'koiches hamatzumtzum, with the limited and well-defined koiches, sheyesh lehem erech, which can approximate and relate el ha-koiches ha-tibiyim, to the natural koiches. What is koiches? Not natural koiches means not koiches that are created as a result of natural experience. Completely opposite from the Shoma koiches. I know there is a table because I feel it, not even because I see it. This is koiches mitzumtzum. We can readily understand the difference between touch and sight. Touch is an infinitely richer recognition and sight is infinitely richer appreciation than touch. Touch is a koich mitzumtzum. In touch, you know this thing as you're feeling it, and for the moment that you're feeling it. It doesn't give you a sense of a bigger truth about it. That even when you don't touch it, it's there. It's there only when you touch it. That's touch. This is koich mitzumtzum. He is relating to this. B'koiches mitzumtzum שיש להם ערך על הכוחות הטבעיים, that are in proximity to the natural koiches. Natural koiches is mamash, and that's a touch that you experience on a natural level. Sight is not a natural experience. Sight, you see things at a distance, you don't even experience them. It has to go down to the koiches tiviyim. He recognizes that this which you see is very touchable. And the same thing that you touch, this is what you see. So therefore you come to recognize the ruchnius aspect within the object that you touch. Initially, it's touch. Koiches tiviyim. But then he recognizes the koiches tiviyim from a higher perspective, from seichel, from a godly perspective, a godly level, and therefore he is masking to the beetle of the nefesh. And this is derech milchama. This is a process of milchama. Because Nefesh Abam is objecting to that.